unavailable experts, please report to room A9.
So guys, Exto here and welcome to Suits and Colours. So this is what the module will look like, and there's not much else to say about it. It always looks somewhat like this. So let's just get started with the module. So, encoded here are actually two separate lights out grids. There'll be an initial state and then we do a few changes to get the boards we need to do the module, or at least the first stage of the module, which we'll call A and B. So let's construct A and B now. Each cell on the module represents a cell in A and B. If a cell in A starts lit if it's a heart or a diamond. So if it's heart or diamond, it's going to currently be on in our A grid. So it's going to be this one, and this one. Yes, it's just those three. For each cell, and the cell in B starts lit if it's orange or green, so we're going to fill in all the oranges and greens as lit currently, which is this one, and this one. And now we're going to change a few of them. For each cell in A, if the number of orthogonally adjacent yellow or green cells is odd, we're going to flip the state of that square. So basically, we're going to go through each of these cells and figure out whether or not this applies, and we'll need to flip the validity of the given square. So we're looking for an odd number of yellows and greens.
All personnel, please return to your stations.
So this one's fine, this one's fine, this one's fine. This one isn't. There is an odd number of yellows and greens. So the state of this square here is now on. Same with this one. This one only has one yellow and no green, so it's 1. So that one flips. This one also flips because it's 1 as well. This one also flips because it's 1 as well. This one's fine because it's 2. And this one's not fine because it isn't, so this one turns off. Now we're going to do the same for grid B, but instead of yellow and greens, we're looking for clubs and diamonds. So this one's fine because there's a club and a diamond. 2 clubs. 1 diamond and no clubs. That means this one's going to be flipped, so it's going to turn into this. 3 clubs, that is an odd number as well. So this one flips. Odd numbers again, because 1, 2, 3. This one flips. This one flips because only 1 club. 2 clubs, 2 clubs and no diamonds. And 1 club, so this one flips as well. So this is our grid A and B, and now our first course of action is going to be getting from grid A to grid B by playing lights out with it, basically. If you've done the module lights out, you know how this works. When you click on one, you flip the state of both the current square and all orthogonally adjacent squares. That being above, below, left and right. So what I'm going to prepared here is a grid for us to use to represent our lights out grid. And there's a certain method you can use to find a solution quickly for this, which is mainly just the normal method of lights out is given by name, turning all the lights off. But in this case, we could make the goal grid a little different by flipping the state of any squares that are in the solution. So that'll be this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then let's fill in our current state of the grid. So let's save this. So we're going to be flipping the state of these ones, and then we're going to be clicking on all of the ones that are on, whether or not they're on by default or on by flipping. So in this case, we're going to be pressing A1 because it's been turned on, or it's been made relatively on given the state of the board. Then we have B, which is on B1, which was on to begin with. C1, which was on to begin with. Ignore A2, ignore B2 because they've been turned off by flipping. C2, C3, and A3. You should put that A3 and C3. So that's A1, B1, C1, C2, A3, and C3. Now let's go through that motion. So that will do this. B1 will do this. C1 will do this. C2 will do this. A3 will do this. And C3 will do this. We're not quite at a solution yet. We just have to do this around again until we get a solution. But then we'll do something else afterwards, which we'll get to when we find a solution. So we're going to once again do what we did. So in this case, we're only looking at A1 and C3. Because they're the only ones that are technically on. So we do this. Find the ones that are technically on again, which is sort of this diamond shape this time. So that will be B1, A2, C2, and B3. And there we have our solution. But if we look at the manual, we find without pressing a cell more than once, but we've got a bunch of duplicates here. However, if you notice with a lights out puzzle, if you press a button and then press it again later on, it's the same as not ever pressing it at all. So now we're going to find all of the ones that we've pressed an even number of times and just get rid of them from the list. So A1 we pressed twice, so that one's not part of the solution. Neither is B1. C1 is. C2 isn't. A3 is. C3 isn't. So our potential solution is C1, A3, A2, B3. Let's return to the start and see if that makes sense. So C1, A3, A2, and B3. Yeah, that gives us our solution. But when we do that, we are now going to mark down those presses. So A3, C1, A2, and B3. C1, A3, A2, B3. Yep. And now this is a third solution grid. Let's just check if we got this right first. You know if you got it right if you press all of them and then it all turns off. So now we're going to be doing, I like to think of this as sort of one extra stage, but you're doing two halves of one stage. Where we're going to be getting from A to C and B to C, which we're just going to do the same process we did previously. So this time we're going to be marking the ones for our C grid, and we're going to fill in first A and do the same process we did. So the ones that are relatively on, B1, B2, B3, and C2. We're ignoring these ones because, of course, they were on, but now have been switched off. These ones are off by default, and this one came on because of the flip. So, flipping all of these. Well, imagine that we've pressed each of these. We're now going to do it again. This is going to be quite a lot of presses. It's A1, B1, A2, B2, C2, A3 and B3. And do that. A1, B1, A2, B2, C2, A3, B3, then we're going to do just A2 and C2. Then A1, A3 and C3. Then B1, C1, C2. As you can see, sure, this method may not be the fastest, but will get you to a solution at some point, at least as far as I know. We then have A1, B1, C2, C3. This is taking a few loops round. A2, C2, C3, B3. C2, C3, and B3. Do it again. We have B1, C2, A2, and B3. And we finally have made it to our solution. So, yes, that one took quite a while to get to it, but we eventually made it there. So now it's time to do the bit of seeing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. B1 wasn't part of the solution. B2 wasn't either. B3 wasn't. So currently most of our first presses were completely pointless. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That means C2 was in fact part of the solution. So we're going to leave the first instance of it. A1 wasn't. A2 wasn't. A3 wasn't. C3 was. So this might have been a solution that some of you might have seen before I even started that. Let's just see if that makes sense. Just each of these ones here. Yep, gives us the final grid. So one of these stages, the solution is just the C column. Now let's do the other one, which we're starting from B this time, as you see here. You can actually start from C and go back to A and B. It's the same solution. Going back and forth between the two grids is the same solution. So once again, mark these ones. And let's do the process again. A1, B2, C3. I'd rather do it in reading order. A1, C1, B2, A3, B3, C3. Because that one's off, and that one's off, yeah. So do that. Alright, that wasn't one of them. So that. So A1, C1, B2, A3, B3, and C3. B1, B2, well, B1, A2, B2, and C2, and A3, B3, and C3. So already our bottom row presses probably will be useless at this current point, at least. So that, 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 and that. Then we have just B1 and B3. Then the four corners, A1, C1, A3, and C3. A3, C3. And then we have a solution. There we go. And then do the cancelling out again. A1 wasn't there. Neither was C1. Neither was B2. A3 was. B3 was. C3 was. B1 wasn't. And our second solution, A3, B3, C3, A2, C2. Let's just double check that. A3, B3, C3, A2, and C2. Yes. So let's input our solutions. We have the last column, and then A3, B3, C3, A2, and C2. And we get a self module. So that was Suits and Colours. It's quite a long-winded mod, but there's probably, of course, there's probably going to be much quicker ways of doing that. But just know that this method I've shown here will get you to a solution, but you actually saw by the second example. Might take you a few loops around until you get there. Anything else I need to say? Striking after the cells have gone blank or into suspension mode, the suits and colours will reappear, pressing any cell will exit this mode, just so you can just double check if you didn't miss note one. or if you just want to work it again from the beginning. Because there's a chance you might have got the right solution for this, but neither of your grids are actually correct. That's unlikely, I think, but that's there just in case that happens. So, that was Suits and Colours. Hopefully the module makes a bit more sense now. And I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. I'll see you later.